I'd like to call to order. Good morning, everyone. My name is Sterling Higa, Chairperson of the Authority. I'd now like to call to order the February 5th, 2025 at-large Authority meeting of the Hawaii Community Development Authority. The time is now 10 a.m.
Thank you, Chair. In accordance with section 92-3.7 Hawaii Revised Statutes, the Hawaii Community Development Authority is holding today's at-large Authority Board meeting virtually on Zoom. The Zoom link details were included on the meeting agenda. Therefore, members of the public are welcome to join us on Zoom and also at our physical meeting site at the American Brewery Building, 547 Queen Street, second floor boardroom, Honolulu, Hawaii, 96813. The HCDA communication staff is hosting this meeting. Once this meeting begins, everyone will be muted for clear audio. Board members, if you have any comments or questions, please unmute yourselves to speak. It is important that all individuals clearly state their name, pseudonym, or other identifier name prior to speaking. If you wish to provide oral testimony and you're attending virtually, please indicate so by clicking the raise hand button found on your Zoom screen. If you're attending in person, you'll be called to the front of the room in the order that you signed up. All testimony will be limited to a maximum of 3 minutes. Your testimony must be related to an item on the agenda. Before you begin your testimony, we ask that you identify yourself and spell your name for the record. When 1 minute is remaining, 1 minute remains will be called out, and then 30 seconds remaining, 30 seconds remaining will be called out. When time has elapsed, time will be called out, after which you will have 30 seconds to conclude your testimony, and then your audio will be turned off. If you are attending in person, the presiding officer will call the next testifier. Keep in mind that this is an opportunity to share your thought with us. If you ask questions during your testimony, neither the board nor the staff is required to provide an answer. If the authority's connection for the remote meeting is lost, the meeting will be recessed till the connection is restored. If the connection cannot be restored within 30 minutes, the meeting will be terminated and the authority will continue the meeting at another notice date. Thank you.
Thank you, Frank. HCDA board members, please remain visible and audible during the meeting. Also, please acknowledge you are present by either saying here or present. Let the record reflect that the following members are present. Vice Chair Ishii.
Here.
Thank you. Secretary Lidstone.
Ew.
Thank you. Member Miranda Johnson is excused. Member Anderson.
Yeah.
Thank you. And Member Evans is excused. Member Streitz.
Here.
Thank you. Member Yamashita.
Member Yamashita.
Marcus excused
Jumped off.
for now. And then Member Tsuji.
Here.
Thank you. Member China is excused. Member Sakota.
Here.
Thank you. Member Gordner.
Here.
Thank you. Member Leong.
Here.
Thank you. Member Light.
Here.
Thank you. Member Kabibi.
Here.
Thank you. Member Yamasaki. Marcus excused. Thank you.
Chair, we have quorum.
Thank you. For today's board meeting, board members will have an opportunity to ask questions or provide comments after an agenda item has been presented. Individuals from the public who have requested to provide verbal public testimony on a specific agenda item are on standby and will be permitted to provide their testimony respectively. Moving to agenda item number 2, the approval of minutes. These are the regular meeting minutes of January 8th, 2025. Board members, are there any comments or corrections to these minutes? Seeing no comments or questions, the minutes are approved as presented. Agenda item number 3, decision making. Consider adopting the HCDA plan for the development of currently owned and future acquired real property, which is included as a goal in the strategic plan revised June 5th, 2024. Mr. Garrett Sasaki, Chief Financial Officer, will now present the staff report.
Thank you, Chair. Morning, members. Just to summarize what we did for this real estate portfolio development plan, we looked at all of our land holdings in all of the districts, evaluated sites suitable for development. If they're already encumbered or kind of at their highest and best use, they were not included on the priority items. We got it down to 6 properties that we see potential for development. They're in various stages, various types of development. I can briefly go through them if you want.
Yes.
Number 1 is charter boat building. We're exploring development possibilities, whether we rehab the existing versus building a different building there. Know a lot, that's linked to the Kupu letter of intent and that process to develop a parking lot in that area. Lot C, we're pursuing legislative funding for a mobility hub, regional parking. Block P for housing development. The next step is to start the procurement of a developer. Block P3, as we just talked about, is for the 99-year leasehold program. And the Kalaeloa 19-acre parcel. The first step is to support the budget request for an EIS for the district, which will cover that parcel. And from there, explore specific development opportunities. As a side note, supportive housing community center, we're looking to acquire land for those projects, but until those transactions are completed, we can't proceed with that planning.
And Chair, if I may add to what Garrett mentioned for Lot C, as he mentioned, there's potential non-housing development, and there's also some discussions within DBED about maybe sort of an innovation kind of hub in addition to a mobility hub, innovation hub for Lot C, which is the area around the entrepreneur sandbox. And then number 4, Block P is what's going to be brought up in the Kakako agenda. Deepak will bring that up as a action item. Thank you, Chair.
Perfect. Thank you, members of the staff, for the report. Board members, do we have comments or questions for staff? Secretary Livstone.
Mahalo. I just have a question on the additional acquisition of properties, the community center. Where would that be? Where are you looking?
So the community center or the community facilities, we're looking for a site within the Kakako Community Development District, because that's how the funding for that is tied to, is for the Kakako Community Development Districts. We're looking at a possible site for that right now. But and when we have more information on that, we'll bring it to the authority or the Kakako board for approval. On the supportive housing, Secretary Lidstone, that too is funding to develop a supportive housing project that could be targeted to Kupuna. And that also, there's a parcel that we've identified, 586 South Street, which is a vacant parcel. We have gotten an appraisal on it with a purchase price of approximately 3.8 million, which is below the asking. And we're working with the seller and the seller's attorney now on finalizing or draft purchase and sale agreement.
Okay, mahalo. One more question. The Kalaeloa parcel, that one is not for housing. Is there a reason why? Is it just not?
So yes, member Lidstone. So that Kalaeloa 19-acre vacant parcel, if you recall, that was the former site of the Honokea Surf Village. It is located next to the airport runway, and I think it would be inappropriate and not suitable for housing because of the noise.
Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, mahalo. Thank you.
Thank you, member Lidstone.
Thank you. We'll go now to member Gordner, and then after member Gordner, member Sakota.
Thank you, Chair. I have 3 questions. The first relates to the 2 Kewalo Basin Harbor parcels. Do we have any sense of the suitability of these parcels for development related to aquaculture? I ask because when I served on the Eva Neighborhood Board, for example, we've heard proposals related to aquaculture offshore of the South Shore. It's a significant potential growth opportunity for the state involving research and development, commercial development. And I wonder, since you note that the NOAA lot, the current development plan as a public paid parking lot, could generate up to $25,000 a month. I wonder if there's not alternative possibilities through commercial leases that could generate more than that if we were to use these parcels for growth industry. So just a question, has it been considered? Is there any suitability? If so, is there any suitability for aquaculture? That's my first question.
Thanks, Member Gardner. I think, of the two Kewalo Basin properties, the charter building is located at the front part of, the harbor. It is a small parcel. It's, now under kind of a, license or agreement with Howard Hughes. While aquaculture is something that we could do in the Mackay area, and that charter building parcel is probably too small for any scale, for aquaculture. On the NOAA lot, this discussion may have preceded your term. So, Kupu, is occupying, what is known as the former net shed in Kewalo Basin Park. That area was turned over to the city, so the city now leases that Kupu so-called net shed area to Kupu. And, they, are planning to increase their programmatic space on the NOAA lot, which is the adjoining lot. They do have plans for that development. We have plans to monetize that by having kind of district parking. I mean, we could look into the possibility of aquaculture, but I'm not sure the space is, large enough to make it of scale. But I take your comments and note them, Member Gordon.
Member Gardner, you had a couple other questions too.
I do. So my second question relates to just kind of the development plan in general. I note that there were two ordinances recently passed at the city level. One facilitates the use of existing buildings for housing through adaptive reuse. The other allows for residential development in B1 and B2 areas. So I noted that the development plan includes current zoning and, as a consideration in the development potential. I'm just wondering if these new ordinances have changed the assessment of any possible development or use cases for the lots listed here in the short list of 6 or in the larger list of all of our properties.
I think thank you for the question. So for Block P, we're gonna use that for, that will be discussed in the Kakako agenda for rental housing project. Block P3, it's slated right now for the 99-year leasehold pilot program. But the final approval of that site will come back to the authority board in midsummer if it looks like the project is feasible at that site. As to other locations for possible adaptive reuse, we'll look into that for housing as well.
Okay, sounds good. I would like to see the results of those ordinances reflected not only in the current properties that we have, but in future acquisition plans as well. There could be opportunities here, in B1 and B2 districts, or in older buildings within our districts that we didn't previously have. My last question is related to this as well. I note that the stated emphasis of the strategy was on producing housing. 2 of the 6 proposals that we have on the table right now are producing housing, right? And it's not to say that we don't have other important goals related to generating revenue and so forth, but I do want to highlight that. And one additional strategy we might consider with the development plan is to expand it in partnership with other government agencies to co-locate or redevelop underutilized properties that they own within our district. So has there been any consideration of that already? And would the staff be willing to potentially expand this development plan to reflect those conversations, if so?
Short answer is yes. This development plan is this one point in time. It is a document that will be revised likely annually along with the ED's strategic plan. All of those comments will be incorporated into the next version.
Okay, very good. Thank you. No further questions on this item.
Thank you, Member
And-
Gardner. Oh,
sorry,
go ahead,
Chair.
Craig.
Member Gardner, just let me restate something. So, I mean, the city ordinance on, adaptive reuse for housing is a good one. I think within our districts, the HCA's zoning rules would supersede the county. But I will say that, adaptive reuse is something that we have done in a lot in our Takako district, in not, in some ways. So, I think the concept and the idea is something that we can embrace and we can, look forward to implementing something like that.
Thank you, Member Gardner, and staff. Member Sakota.
Yes. Just looking at all the Kewalo Basin properties, just brings to mind the issues of the bulkhead, repair going on. Can you guys give me an update on that?
Okay, thank you, Member Sakota. I only laugh because, the repair of the bulkhead has been brought up, several times. Even before, my time as executive director. I think maybe a couple years ago now, was the first time that the request for funds to repair the bulkhead actually made it through budget and through DBED, made it through budget and finance, and made it into the state budget. It didn't make it beyond that, as I recall. For this budget cycle, for this biennium, we did make a request in the DBED budget for bulkhead repairs. But we made the request so in conjunction with the Office of Hawaiian Affairs, because while we always called it bulkhead repairs, it was really the pier repairs that are owned by pier and column repairs that were owned by ACA. The bulkhead or the retaining wall part is owned by OHA. So we submitted a budget request to DBED for $100 million, which is the estimated now total cost of repairs of the pier, the columns, which we own, and then the retaining wall or the bulkhead that OHA owns. So that did not make it out of the DBED BNF process, did not. So that is the long and the short of it, Member Sakota.
Okay. Just good
Oh,
to
yeah.
kind of keep that on our radar. That's a major project, that's why, correct?
It is, the repair of that bulkhead, for the Office of Hawaiian Affairs is an essential component is necessary for the development on that particular parcel.
Okay.
In the meantime, Member Sakota, if you've been down there, we have, fenced off that pier area to prevent pedestrian and vehicular access to that because of safety concerns. Just because we're not sure if and when we're gonna get funding. We have also tried, Member Sakota, to get some congressionally directed spending to do planning money for that, but it didn't make it through. I think in the future, we'll look to other sources of funds besides legislative funding for those repairs. And also work with the Office of Hawaiian Affairs to jointly get some kind of money.
And Craig, if I can, even though that did not make it in, the appropriations for the bulkhead did not make it into the governor's proposed budget, there is still the possibility that through the legislative session, the legislature may budget for those repairs. It is At this point, it is unlikely, but it is still possible.
It is unlikely, but still possible if, I think it would be more possible if, there was even a little bit of money allocated to them.
Sure.
Then at least it's a placeholder, but when there's nothing in it, it's harder to, especially with that amount of money.
Sure.
But you're right, Chair.
Send your prayers, Member Sakota.
All right, thank you.
But when, also Member Sakota, when we go through when Garrett goes through the CIP request, you know, and recaps it, you'll notice that there are a good number of CIP requests for the agency and, you know, it would be challenging, I think, to add on 100 million for that. I mean, at this point, it would be challenging because then it would start to look like, you know, we've got a ton of CIP money, a lot of CIP money, so it would be challenging. But not impossible, not impossible.
But-
So,
But if that project were to somehow make it through and continue, it would have impact on the charter building?
no, that one wouldn't, because the charter building is located right on Ala Moana,
Okay,
the bulkhead and, pier repairs are for the site that was the former Fisherman's Wharf.
gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Thank you for the question.
Thank you, Member Sakota. Members, any other comments or questions for staff?
Sure.
Member Strikes.
Just one question. I appreciate the report and the comprehensiveness of, analyzing the portfolio and monetizing certain properties. I note that the report is looking at kind of the direct ability to develop, but from my understanding on past conversations around FAR, there's potential to extract that and create value like we used to purchase a property recently. Is there any place for that discussion in this as well? No. So even if a site is determined to be not directly developable, it might still have
No.
some sort of impact or value extraction.
Yeah, no, thank you for the question, and I'll try to clarify that, Member Strike. So when we've used the floor area ratio in the past to purchase properties, namely Block P and Block P3, the floor area has come out of our bank, our floor area bank. And the source of the floor area in that bank is mainly remnant parcels, mainly road parcels that we have. And it wouldn't come out of, would not come out of these parcels floor area, would not. At least that's the thinking right now.
Members, any other comments or questions? I just want to thank the staff for their work on this, having gone through the strategic planning process where the board in that PIG, declared that this was a priority. And then going through the information session where you received feedback from the board. I think that this is a really solid plan. I appreciate that the matrix is laid out. And I appreciate that you've really dialed in onto, the core priorities. Obviously, HCDA has a lot of assets. And making the most effective use of it is part of our role of stewardship. So, thank you to the staff for doing great work on this.
Thank you, Chair. Just want to give credit to Garrett and Lindsay and Ryan for putting this together and taking a comprehensive view of it. And it's not written in stone. It's something that we'll review from time to time and come back to the board.
Great. We will public testimony. So we will accept testimony in the following order: persons who signed up prior to the meeting date, persons present in the physical location, and persons online in the Zoom meeting. Speakers will be called upon to testify in the order in which they have signed up. Public testimony will be limited to 3 minutes each. Since each authority member has or will be given a copy of any written testimony that you might have provided, please refrain from reading your written testimony and instead summarize your comments in the time that you have available. When you are called, please clearly state your name, pseudonym, or other identifier name, and if desired, any organization that you are representing. There is one person who signed up to provide testimony. So we'll begin with Tara Rojas.
Okay. Aloha, can you hear me?
Yes,
Yes.
loud and clear.
Okay. So I'm going to use my 3 minutes fully. I'm going to continue what I'm saying because what I was trying to mention, being the only testifier, I'm going to say it now. that the Public Apology Law 103-150 was meant to restore Kanaka Maoli sovereignty and provide reparations for land theft, militarization. You know, we know you just contracted with the Navy to use their 18 million to upgrade Kalaeloa electrical infrastructure, and cultural genocide that Kanaka Maoli and even Kamaina have endured. Instead, we're seeing land taken under the guise of affordable housing and everything, you know, all these bills and what you guys were just discussing, but there are no protections for Kanaka Maoli rights, culture, or future. Look at Maui, look at the Grand Wailea, that their expansion, that the EV protectors 30 years ago also mentioned the EV, so they got relegated to a burial ground on the property. And then now they want to dig up that burial ground, that garden in which EV is there, and just came out again that they have to stand up again and fight. We heard land issues, anti-Max, who won in the Supreme Court for the military to clean up Pohakuloa, and they still didn't. So in 1977, she occupied Kaho'olawe, and she's still having to speak up now because regarding land issues at the legislature. If she knew about this, I'm sure she would be here as well, because it's the continuation overdevelopment of Aina. Now it does say here, again, the lack of clarity around the previous issue or whatever housing you guys are going to keep continue to do according to your bylaws, low cost housing or housing, and the focus on middle income targets undermines the intent, all in all, of the apology law and fails to provide the reparative measures that Kanaka Maoli deserve. I urge you to halt these provisions and any other things you guys are planning to prioritize the restoration of lands to Kanaka Maoli. You need authentic engagement with Kanaka Maoli communities, not more corporate-driven development that leaves everyone behind, especially Kanaka Maoli in their own homelands. The 99-year leasehold program and any other program development you plan to do will only further price Kanaka Maoli and Kamaina, all of us, out of our own homeland. Mahalo. So cease and desist. Mahalo.
Thank you, Ms. Rojas. Anyone else signed up to testify online?
No.
In person?
No, Chair.
Anyone present wishing to testify? None. Members, any questions or comments before we move to a motion? Seeing no questions or comments, members, the motion that you see printed will differ from the motion that I am going to suggest. The difference is the motion I suggest includes the date of February 5th for this development plan. Just so that we're clear on which we're adopting. So members, is there a motion for the board to adopt the HCDA plan for the development of currently owned and future acquired real property dated February 5th, 2025, which is included as a goal in the strategic plan revised June 5th, 2024?
So moved.
Moved by member Strikes. Do I hear a second?
Second, Kevin Sakota.
Seconded by member Sakota. Thank you so much. Members, is there any further discussion on the motion? Seeing none, I will ask Eric to take the roll call vote.
Thank you, Chair. On that motion, Member Strites?
Aye.
Member Sakota?
Yes.
Chair Higo?
Yes.
Vice Chair Ishii?
Yes.
Secretary Lidstone?
Aye.
Member Anderson?
Yes.
Member Suji?
Yes. Yes.
Member Gordner?
Yes.
Member Leong?
Aye.
Member Light?
Aye.
Member Habibi?
Aye.
Chair motion passes.
Great.
Sorry. Member Yamasaki.
Member Yamasaki? Sorry, are you?
Excuse. Oh, excuse. Yeah, okay. Sorry.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
11.
Motion passes with 11 yes votes.
Sorry.
3 excused. 4 excused.
4 excused.
5.
Five.
5 excused, yes.
Fine. And 1 vacant.
And 1 vacant, right? Thank you, members. We'll move now to agenda item number 3 for information and discussion update by the HCDA staff on proposed bills that affect the Hawaii Community Development Authority. The following are the significant bills that HCDA is monitoring and will be presenting for information. Mr. Craig Nakamoto, Executive Director, will now provide the list of bills.
Thank you, Chair. The list of the bills is provided in your agenda. First of all, I want to, really acknowledge the help of, Garrett, Francine, Ryan, Tommy Lynn, and others on this legislative effort. So it's only less than, sort of just the first month barely of legislative session, but it's been a busy one. Just overall, the list that you see kind of reflects, 3 things, I think. Bills with direct impact, bills that are either, historic preservation or permitting related, and housing related bills. With respect to the historic preservation permitting, we normally typically we don't, comment on these, but given, some of the concerns about, permitting and also historic preservation in the process, we decided to comment on these to help, move some of those process along and, get it done on a little bit more timely basis. So, I'm gonna first start out at the top of the list, HB 300, and I'm gonna ask Garrett, this is the budget bill, ask Garrett to kind of summarize.
On the budget bill, we're pending hearing on HB 300. Included in the current version is our operating, that's our payroll for staff, general and special funded positions, as well as the 7 CIP projects. Just real quickly, those are the 99-year leasehold program, 30 million. UH West Oahu infrastructure, 50 million. Evelake Kapalama infrastructure, 62 million. And sorry, some of these are split between the years of the biennium, but this is just the total amount. Land acquisition for a parcel in Kalailoa, 500,000. Kaka'ako Makai planning, 1 million. Climate change impact assessment, 1.5 million. And Kalailoa EIS, 1 million.
Chair,
Thank
I'm
you.
just gonna pause there, if the board members have any comments on the budget.
Sure. Members, comments or questions on the budget? Members Dakota, pray for 100 million. Garrett, would you like to continue?
Oh, that was it for the budget item.
Okay, perfect.
Okay, I'll continue with the rest of the bills going down the list. So HB 1007 with its companion 1326 is our admin bill. And what it does is to revise the findings and purposes to make the findings and purposes consistent with our current roles and responsibilities as a housekeeping measure. And then secondly, for the transit-oriented development part of our statute, it removes the 4 county boards to make it more efficient and to remove some redundancies in the board structure. So HB 1007 has been heard and is moving to the Judiciary and Hawaiian Affairs Committee. The other bill in the Senate, not yet, but we'll keep you informed of that. Senate Bill 534 is the bill relating to Kaka'ako Makai. So that's been heard yesterday, and then Monday, the 3 committees heard the decision making on that bill. They tweaked the bill a little bit, and they're proposing a Senate Draft 1 that addresses a lot of comments received. And we attended the hearing and provided our comments from a kind of a neutral planning perspective. And we're still asking to do a kind of a community planning effort for Makai. House Bill 605, again, related to Mackay. I believe that, that's a companion or sort of a companion to SB 534. It hasn't been heard in the House yet, so my thinking is the House is not gonna hear it and is gonna wait for SB 534 to cross over and provide, input of that. Senate Bill 211 is another, variation of the Mackay area bill. That one has a very onerous referral pattern, and I don't think that's gonna be heard. HB 818 and Senate Bill 1078. So that bill relates to the establishment of the Waiakea Peninsula area, which is Banyan Drive, as a community development district. This was an idea that has come up in the past, but more recently in 2023 was floated by Representative Nakashima. And it calls for the bill calls for the establishment of the district and also calls for the conveyance of DLNR lands and the leases to HCDA. There was a lot of concern after the bill was introduced, raised by DLNR and Land Division about the transfer and conveyance of the land. So in my discussions with Chair Chang on it, we decided that our approach would be to remove that conveyance section from HB 818 and take that off the table for now. We'll discuss it with Land Division and others, and including Deputy Attorney General, and allow the other parts of the bill to move forward for discussion purposes. So the House Water and Land Committee took our comments and deleted the conveyance section of the bill, and the bill is moving along. I think that one on the Senate side, I don't believe that that's gonna be heard, the companion to that. I think it'll just be addressed on the, if the House bill crosses over. SB 489, and then its sort of companion HB 742 asked us to prepare environmental impact statements for UH West Oahu, and for Eagle Lake Kapalama. For Eagle Lake Kapalama, that EIS is being completed. UH West Oahu, UH testified that they've already completed one, but are willing to do another update should there be additional, development or conditions that require it. So that's what we presented to Water and Land. Nevertheless, they moved that bill out to the next committee. Senate Bill 1103 is something new. It hasn't gotten a hearing yet. It was introduced by Senator Dela Cruz, and it relates to community districts. It's really patterned after the Lele District Bill that was introduced in the 2024 session. And it creates a community, it just establishes the framework for it. It doesn't establish a district, but it just establishes a framework for it. There is no funding in this, and there is no staffing positions. And it has an elected provision for an elected governance board, just like the Lele bill did. In our discussions with staff, Ways and Means staff on this bill, my comment to them was that if districts are established, under this mechanism or this structure, we're gonna need funding and staffing resources to make this happen. And I also suggested that if this bill passes, that maybe give us some ramp time before districts are established so that we can take care of other needs that we have to take care of. To me, it's just a capacity issue, Chair. Senate Bill 1112 and House Bill 920 relate to bills that DHHL proposed to have board members, ex officio position on our Kalailo and Kakako bill. Those have not received a hearing yet. Senate Bill 26 and the companion HB 1451. 1451 has been heard. Senate Bill 26 will be heard. They are Senator Chang's bills, and what they ask us to do is to update these tier tables with lands that are available for development, for affordable housing development. OPSD has taken the lead on this and is willing to do the work, and they've testified as such on House Bill 1451 and will testify as such, I think, on Senate Bill 26. This kind of work, I think, just requires resources that we don't have, Chair. And we communicated that to Senator Chang respectfully. So this, I think, offers the opportunity for OPSD to do the work with funding and to fulfill the requirements of this bill. Senate Bill 1669 and House Bill 1484. These are sort of these transit-oriented development improvement partnerships that are proposed to be created within DOT for administrative purposes. And it's intended to provide the means to do projects like roads, other kinds of infrastructure and other improvements within TOD areas, presumably to fill gaps that exist in those kind of infrastructure. ACDA's involvement in this was to provide assistance to this partnership. It's a little bit overlapping over our current TOD improvement program. So when it came up in the House, what we suggested was that HCDA be taken out of it and then just allow the partnership to seek HCDA's help if they needed assistance, rather than us have formal involvement. Because there is no, at least in the current draft, there wasn't a formal mechanism for us to get funding and staff. The House committee took those amendments, and we'll see where it goes from there. House Bill 1207 is a CIP bill that was introduced by Representative Iwamoto. She approached us and asked us if we have any CIP requests for the 25th representative district. So in that bill, she has proposed $2 million for a pickleball court in the Kakako Community Development District. Pickleball courts are very heavily used, and she would like to see funding for a pickleball court. And where we're proposing to do that, if we get the funding, would be in Mother Waldron Park near the pavilion, if it can fit there. And that would, I think, serve two purposes. It would add to the pickleball courts that are there, plus the basketball court, and also would activate that area a little bit more. The second CIP request in that House bill is $20 million for design and construction for Ilani Y. As some of the board members may be aware, we're finishing up the planning for Ilani Y Street with some funding that we received a couple of years ago. But Representative Iwamoto graciously put in $20 million for design and construction. The third item that's in there is Representative Iwamoto's desire that the agency focus on affordable housing, continued focus on affordable housing. So she has put in 43 million for land acquisition in the Kakako Development District for affordable housing. And I think, Chair, with that kind of, that funding is, we might envision maybe looking at lot consolidation and acquiring several lots, maybe in the Sheridan area where we can, then take advantage of the height, the additional height that we put there. So those are ideas. And then the other two, are governor's nomination for member Lidstone and member Gardner. Historic preservation, I'll just go over these really quick, and permitting. As I mentioned, I think with our experience working with SHPD, we've suggested in some of these bills, and we've submitted testimony to try to streamline the SHPD process. This is not a criticism of SHPD, but it's more a way that we can, streamline the process. And then on, one of the bills, we have, county permitting, Senate bill, this is a companion to House Bill 761. This is Senate Bill 161. It relates to kind of, exempting state projects from county building permits. And what we've suggested, Chair, is that instead of making it, compulsory for state agencies to do that or get that exemption, I think Ryan's testimony was to allow it to be optional or may, in recognition that while we understand the intent of the bill, that a state agency, and especially our state agency, might not have the capability and the resources to process building permits. It requires engineers, architects, and other kind of disciplines that we don't have right now. And if you're only gonna do it for one or two projects, I would argue that there's not really economies of scale that we can, use to do that. The others are housing related that we're kind of monitoring. Senate Bill 68 at the bottom of the list for the housing related is a bill to kind of put us under a new Department of Housing. And I think while we understand the intent of it, this idea has come up before. What OPSD and I think we have suggested is we do have a significant housing purpose now, but we also have other purposes, and I think if I can say this, the fit is, I think, more appropriate under DBED, at least for now. So we made that suggestion, but nevertheless, the bill is moving to Ways and Means, and so we'll see how that goes. The last bill is House Bill 800, and that was heard the other day, but it's been deferred. I think it's looking at some kind of transaction with Leah Civic Center, Evelyn, fire station, kind of a swap with the city, but the bill was heard, but I understand it was deferred. The first crossover is around March 5th or 6th, Chair, and board members, so we'll provide an update after the first cross. I'm sorry, this is an extensive list, but as I mentioned, we took a little bit different stance on bills this year to try to offer our expertise and expertise to comment on some of the bills that matter to us, like historic preservation, SHPD, permitting, how to some extent housing related, and of course the bills that directly impact us. So apologize for the long summary.
On the contrary, Director, thank you for that level of depth and explanation and detail. It's helpful for the board. Board members, any comments or questions for Craig or staff? Member Gardner and then Member Anderson.
Mine is a general one. As you all know, this would be my first session with the HCDA board. So I'm just wondering if there are any guidelines or policies that I should be aware of relating to testifying in my capacity as a board member. And you could say those out loud, or you could point me to a URL I can read on my own time.
Yeah, Member Gardner, there's no written policies on that. I think for the legislature, this is my thinking on this, for the legislature, the agency's views on legislature, I think it's something that, I prefer that, I take the lead on. I think the legislature looks to me as the head of the agency to represent the agency, make representations for the agency. And I think I prefer it that way. And I'm not trying to stifle your participation or any board members, but sometimes, we have to make sure that there's a unified voice or a unity of voice and messaging. Because the legislature hears so many voices among ours, and I want to make sure that they hear one voice when it comes to agency-related bills. Member Gardner, I hope that helps. If not,
That makes sense to me. Let me frame it a different way. Are there any bills or areas where you think it would actually be helpful to the agency to have board members testify?
I think that's a fair question. I think if there's a bill or bills that require intervention by board members or the whole board, I will let the board know.
Okay, thank you.
And I won't be shy about asking for help.
Thank you, Member Gordner, and Craig. Member Anderson.
Hello. Yes, I was watching some of the testimony at the legislature, Craig, that you're involved in. And the Department of Attorney General had some testimony about zoning a single parcel. And I was wondering at a future board meeting, maybe we could get more information on that.
Sure.
Just how that works and what are the parameters. And it also got me thinking about the Kaka'ako-Makai. When people refer to the lots in Kaka'ako-Makai, how are those defined and where are those defined? The different lots.
Yeah, so the first question, I think first, I'm kind of assuming that testimony was related to the Kaka'ako-Makai legislation. So let me circle back on that one, and then maybe we can bring it back to the board for a presentation and on that. Frankly, when I have to take a look at that opinion. On the Kaka'ako-Makai lots that were subject to Senate Bill 534. The boundary descriptions in that bill, and this is one of the things that I've commented on, if you recall, the boundary descriptions were kind of were not accurate in the way that they describe boundaries. But generally, there was really two groups of parcels. One was the parcels all the way from where, Member Anderson, if you're familiar with the AFES, former AFES building along Ala Moana Boulevard, all the way to Forest Avenue. And those are the lots, parcels, and it included HCDA lots, owned lots. It included the city's gateway park lots, and it also included Kamehameha School's 4 lots. And those were the lots that are proposed to be residential and 400 feet. Then there were additional lots, that parcels, the Fisherman's Wharf area, Kewalo Basin, and then the Piano lot. And then at the last hearing, OHA added in additional lots to that, lot I, which is the reuse Hawaii lot. And those were also subject to residential, but not subject to the 400 feet, if I recall.
And member Anderson, these block designations, if I have it correct, are from OHA's materials for the letters for the lots.
Correct.
So I think to answer your question, member Anderson, in these hearings, as blocks have been discussed, they're typically using OHA's designations, which Francine has helpfully thrown up on the screen.
Okay, so when we talk about a lot, it's more of an informal, I guess except for the property we transfer to the city, they would have a boundary on that. But for the other
Yeah.
lots, it's just a traditional use or it's just a logical area, but it's not something registered with HCD as an official title or with the city as an official boundary.
The Gateway Park has been transferred to the city, so they own that. And the way these, instead of identifying it by TMK number or, you know, something like that, or address, they prefer to just kind of describe general boundaries and include it in those boundaries.
Member Anderson, does that answer your question? Perfect, thank you. Members, any other comments or questions? If not, we'll move to public testimony. Do we have any persons? Or actually, I should read the other thing first. We will accept testimony in the following order: persons who signed up prior to the meeting date, persons present in the physical location, and persons online in the Zoom meeting. Speakers will be called upon to testify in the order in which they have signed up. Public testimony will be limited to 3 minutes each. Since each authority member has or will be given a copy of any written testimony that you might have provided, please refrain from reading your written testimony and instead summarize your comments in the time that you have available. When you are called, please clearly state your name, pseudonym, or other identifier name, and if desired, any organization that you are representing. There was one person signed up to provide testimony on Zoom. Tara Rojas. Tara Rojas present.
She's present and she has the ability to unmute her microphone.
Okay. Tara Rojas, you should be unmuted. Give Ms. Rojas 30 seconds to see it. Tara Rojas, another 15 seconds. We'll move now. Members, any questions or comments? Okay, we'll move now to agenda item number 4, the report of the executive director. This is the monthly report and other status reports and the financial highlights for December 2024. Executive Director Nakamoto will now provide his monthly report with Garrett Sasaki, Chief Financial Officer, on standby for any questions from the board members.
Thank you, Chair. I want to just turn it over to Garrett to kind of walk through some of these numbers, just for clarity.
Great. Thank you, Chair, Executive Director. Last meeting, there were some questions about specific line items in the monthly financial report, personal services and repair and maintenance. So I just want to share a quick explanation of what those variances were for. Repair and maintenance, there was one large invoice that covered November 2023 through June 2024 that was paid in July 2024. It distorted the numbers a little bit, but overall, we're still under budget for this current fiscal year. For personal services, that is our portion of the cost of our deputy attorney generals. That was subject to a timing difference, but overall projected for the year should be around the budgeted amount. The Kailua line, as you can see, is a little bit over budget. I think that was just an internal allocation on our part, so it will be corrected in the future. That's everything.
Well,
Thank you.
Garrett Sasaki. Members, any comments or questions for Garrett or Craig? Seeing, Member Gordon.
Just to say thank you for looking into that and bringing that back. I know that was my request last week, or last time.
Thank you, Member Gordon.
Awesome. Members, any other comments or questions? If not, public testimony. Do we have any persons pre-signed up for testimonies? The answer is yes. So we will accept testimony in the following order: persons who signed up prior to the meeting date, persons present in the physical location, and persons online in the Zoom meeting. Speakers will be called upon to testify in the order in which they have signed up. Public testimony will be limited to 3 minutes each. Since each authority member has or will be given a copy of any written testimony that you might have provided, please refrain from reading your written testimony and instead summarize your comments in the time that you have available. When you are called, please clearly state your name, pseudonym, or other identifier name, and if desired, any organization that you are representing. There's one person who signed up to provide testimony, Tara Rojas. If you're available, you should be enabled to share. Wait 30 seconds to see if Ms. Rojas is present. Tara Rojas, we'll wait 15 seconds. Okay, anyone else on the Zoom wishing to testify? Anyone else in person wishing to testify?
None, Chair.
Seeing none. Members, any questions or comments before we adjourn? Seeing no comments or questions, thank you to those who joined us on Zoom or in person. That concludes our business for this meeting today. The time is 11:02 a.m. We will wait 5 minutes and then reconvene at 11:07 for the Kaka'ako Authority regular meeting. Thank you, at-large members, for coming today.